Okay.
Okay, we got the recording going. We got Dinko in the house. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen so that I can get the presentation that I put together going. All right, so what I call this, Dinko, is high volume selling. It's really a blueprint for a high volume selling business. And to me, that's anything over 40 deals. Really, when we used to think high volume, we would think of 100 plus
Yeah.
deals. So I kind of ran in a club, and we were highly competitive. So my boys would do it. We all did 100 plus deals, and so we didn't. In fact, when people would say, "Hey, is that guy a mega agent?" There really was no real definition of that.
Yeah.
So we were like, "Okay, you're a mega. A capper is not a mega. That's
Yeah.
hot potatoes. You in the 100 plus club or whatever." So, but 40 plus, I mean, 40 is still significant because when I was doing my last year in active production, I still produce. I mean, I still cap every year, but when I was really doing it, I did 153 deals. But when you look at the sale price, the sales price now is, I mean, we're talking 6 years ago. So the sale price now is so much bigger than
Yeah.
it used to be that you could do a lot less deals and still make more money than I was making. One-on-one coaching session. I always throw this in because I don't do these very often. In fact, with the masters, I hardly ever do them, but sometimes it warrants
Yeah.
one-on-one. Sometimes you'll find I kind of teach the herd or the pack, if you will, and we kind of grow up together. But sometimes you'll have, one or two of your prize, you know, uh, bulls, if you will, that are ready to step up to the next level. And so we kind of bring them out. We do one-on-one coaching. But if you're watching this and you're not in Mentorship Masters, number one, you should be. And if you're watching this and you just want to pick my brain, I had a guy yesterday, Dinko. I was out on the trail, and he kept calling me, and I was like, "Oh man, what's this guy need?" He says, "Man, I want to coach with you." So I sent him my rates. My coaching is 3,500 for 1 hour. So if somebody, and I get this a lot, people are like, "Man, can I just pick your brain?" What people don't realize is, I made my first million when I was 29. I'm 50, so that's 21 years of making millions of dollars. And so you typically in a 1 hour session like this one, I'm going to teach you how to make millions in this
Yeah.
session. So and that's what it is. So, but if you're watching this and you're like, man, how can I get a session like Dinko? Well, you can pay for it, or you can join Mentorship Masters, one or the other. So here's what I've come to understand. It's far easier to sell 100 homes a year than to sell 20 homes a year. In fact, you'll work half as much time. And we'll talk about the reason for that. But in a nutshell, when you have a high volume business, you actually work a lot less. That a lot of people don't realize that, but that's the way it works. If you have a low volume business, like I've been running the last couple of years personally, low volume, because now I consider myself more of a trainer, coach, and a recruiter. I have 153 agents in our organization that I coach. And so I'm really not necessarily trying to compete with them, but I'm trying to make them get to their ultimate greatness. And I don't really need to produce like I did before. And so what I find is when I'm doing, let's say I'm doing 15 or 20 deals a year, it takes a lot more time than when I was doing 100. Okay. The only two problems that you'll ever have in real estate in this business is not enough leads or not enough leverage. Those are the only problems that you'll ever have when it's deduced into a nutshell. So the ones that don't have enough leads, um, you know, they fall in the category of they're chasing the business, they're trying to feast or famine.
Yeah.
But now once you've got that piece figured out, and you did how many? You did like 27 deals, Dinko, your
My
first year?
first full year. Yeah.
Yeah, your first year you did 27 deals. So you already have that piece figured out, how to get the leads. It's just how do I get 5 times that many or 3 times
Yeah.
that many?
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And then you're going to run into a big leverage problem. Okay, leverage is people, systems, and tools. And so we'll cover both. We won't cover the leads part of this today because it's assuming that if you're at the high volume level, you've already tackled sort of that problem.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that does happen though is when you go to high volume, you sometimes can banter back and forth between the leads and leverage problems. So let's say, for example, now you've done 40 deals, but now you want to get to 100. Well, we might have a leads problem again because now we need more deals, more leads to generate those additional deals. But in general, the biggest problem you'll have if you've tackled the leads game is leverage. You get overwhelmed. Like Mina, I was just talking to her when Mina came to me. She had done 8 transactions, and she was in the business already 8 months, but she did those 8 deals or no, she did several, not 8 deals, she did several deals, and then she went 8 months without a single deal. That's what it was. She went 8 months without a single deal.
Yeah.
So very different than your first year. That's how her first year was. And that's typical. You sell to your aunt and your family members, and then you don't do any more business.
Yeah.
So she had a big leads problem. Well, when I talked to her today, her problem was she just did 8 deals in 10 days.
Nice. Okay? That's a good problem.
So now she's like overwhelmed. And then I was telling her, I said, you have to be careful, because when you get to the point where somebody's calling you and they're like, hey, I want to list my house. And you're like, crap, another one, that's sending off bad energy. You always have to be excited and happy for the business that comes in.
Yep.
So, or else the universe will stop sending you that business if you guys show gratitude. So, okay. So when you run a high volume listing business, you have to generate lots of leads, and you have to have the right leverage. Now, who's your first hire? This is a little test. Dinko, who would be your first hire?
Assistant.
You got it. You passed the test, baby. Yeah. So a lot of times agents think that their first hire is a buyer agent because they get tired of working the buyer business, and but that's not the first hire. It's always going to be administrative. That's your first hire all the time. So to make this easy, I put together a chart of duties. I'm going to share this stuff with you, so you'll get copies of all of this. But when it comes to the duties that you do, it helps to color code it. So when you look at this list of on a regular listing, what we call a retail listing, versus a short sale listing or a distress listing or some other kind of listing, these are all the duties that go into it. So it starts with generating the prospect, and it ends with attending the closing. Okay, all the way here. And then there's some after closing duties. So for you, Dinko, for high volume, I only want you working on the things that are not highlighted. And there's only 6 items. You generate the prospect, you do the initial phone consultation, you do the initial CMA, you conduct a listing appointment. You can do it by Zoom or in person. You get the listing doc signed, and then you draft your DI, which is your disbursement instructions, which is how do you get paid? And actually your admin can do that too. Your admin can actually do that part. So theoretically, once you generate the listing and you take the listing, you're done. Okay, that's it. That's all the work that you'll ever do on any listing. And that's why I tell my high volume listers, you should only ever have to invest 3 hours into any listing that you take over the life of the listing. So everything else, and this is going to be the big challenge, is to delegate everything else. So initially it'll start off as a challenge because you're so used to doing everything that if you almost feel like nobody can do it as well as you can. And so that's where I say you have to be willing to accept good enough.
Yeah.
Because perfection is the enemy of progress, right? Perfection is the enemy of progress, Winston Churchill. Yep. So what we have to do when we're really good, like when we can take almost 30 deals in our first year of doing a business, what we have to realize is we are better than most people to be able to do that. Okay. But it doesn't matter. As long as it's good enough, it's okay. And so everything that's highlighted in blue, that's what your assistant's going to do. And anything that's highlighted in yellow is they're things that I don't necessarily want you doing, but they do require a license. Okay. So I would call that like a property assistant. And then the blue is a team admin, your admin person. It used to be that we would have very complex structures for how we put together our teams. You know, I want 2 buyer agents, and you can get to that later, but you'd say, okay, I want, you know, 1 or 2 admins, I want 2 buyer agents, a listing specialist, and all these people. But I've kind of figured out an easier way to do it. If you have the right administrative people and you have a licensed assistant or somebody, some other agent, even another agent in your market that you pay on a task, like to do certain tasks for you on your listings, you can get by with just that. Or
Oh, okay, you're saying like give them like 5% or 10% or 100.
no, I don't give them any percentage. I give them, I pay them $25 an hour.
Oh, okay. So if they're like, if they have to go present offers to the seller, then you just pay them however long it took them to go do that.
Yeah, I'll kind of show you how I do
Okay.
that. Yeah, that's a good question, but it's not part of this presentation, but I will show you how I do that. And that's how you can leverage off everything that's in yellow here.
Sure.
In fact, let me see. Let me just show you. Let me see if I have it here. So this is to answer that question that you have right now. So what I've put together now, most people, what they'll do is they'll cut an agent in on the deal. They'll say, hey, if you do this stuff for me, I'll give you 10% of every deal, whatever. I don't do it that way because there's so many agents in our market, and that, I mean, for lack of a better word, they just suck. You know, they're just not good. And so to me, I'm like, okay, I'll honor the fact that you have a license, and I'll pay you, because the stuff that I'm gonna have them doing is, you know, it's, to me, I value it at 25 bucks an hour. So what I did was I came up with a sheet. You can see it here. And I can send this to you. So what I say is, to place a sign and lock box is going to take an hour and a half of time, right?
Yeah.
So that gives them 1 hour of travel, 15 minutes to place a sign, 15 minutes you know, 15 minutes to do the sign and lock box, 1 hour of travel, and 15 minutes maybe to chit chat with the home seller. So that's an hour and a half. I'll pay you 40 bucks. You put up a sign and lock box for me. So these are basically task oriented. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. I kind of do that with an agent in Utah because I moved down here, so I pay her to put up log boxes and take them down, and so I kind of do something like that a little bit.
Now I have even let me see if I can find this on real quick, and if not, I'll come back to it later.
Okay.
Let me just see, because I have this checklist that you can kind of just grab it and edit it if you want to. Let me see.
It has like the different step processes and different.
No, that's something else. I'll show you that in a minute. I've got that later on in our deal. So let me just share with you real quick here. Okay, so this is what I call my assistance form. And so if I have let's say I take a listing, I'll just make a duplicate of this sheet here real quick. And let's say, you know, you put in the client's information, the property address and all that. So then for that agent, that's kind of my helper, I'll say, hey, on this deal, I need you to do the sign and lock box. I want you to do the walkthrough of the house. Usually I'll have professional photos taken, but if it's like a tear down, or if it's just a land, or if it's a short sale or something like that. And you can see here, I don't pay very much, but again, in our market, man, there's a lot of agents that are hungry. And so, you know, 25 bucks an hour is what I pay. So I need you to answer agent inquiries. So look at this one, what you were talking about negotiating. So answer any inquiries about Knolly's listings, receive offers, and so on. Now, negotiate like a repair related item. So I pay them 50 bucks to like for if they're actively in a negotiation. I say it's going to probably take you 2 hours to negotiate that out. If agent inquiries, for the life of the listing, I say you're going to spend maybe 3 hours. Now, sometimes they might spend more time than that, sometimes less. So again, I've generally speaking, I'm saying when I go to an agent to hire that agent, I say, would you be willing to do stuff on the side? Are you real busy right now? I know they're not busy because they sold like 4 houses last year.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not too busy. Well, would you be willing to do a few things on the side for me for like 25 bucks an hour? Well, sure. And then but then I don't pay them. I don't have them track their hours because I'm saying, hey, this is how much time this should take for you to do this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because if you let them track their hours, then they'll be like, well, it took me 4 hours. I'm like, no. I don't pay you to. So in other words, if you have them on this, when you attend the closing, I say it's going to take 2 hours to do that. And I pay them for their travel time. You know, I don't pay them for their mileage. And so then I'll hand them this with everything checked that I want them to do on that listing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I do that. And that only is talking about, again, the stuff that's in, let me see if I get back to, hold on, let me get back to this other, that's only talking about the stuff that's in yellow. Theoretically, you still can do that.
Yeah.
Initially. But the idea is that you get to the point where you only do the stuff that's not highlighted on a listing. The reason is because, trust me, I've run a high volume listing business for years. And I know that if you do a lot of stuff that's on here that you shouldn't be doing, you're going to get burnt out. You know, you're going to get to resent the business. And the way you keep the business fun is essentially you think of yourself as being a presenter. You go out and you present, you do a presentation. They love you. They like your energy. They sign with you and you're done. You go, where's my next presentation? You know, that's it. And that keeps it fun and interesting. You're meeting people. You're doing the part of the business that's fun. You know, so I'm going to give you a checklist for if you ever decide to do short sales. I like short sales because I have a gal that I've trained on them, and I only have 3 things that I have to do on a short sale from start to finish. And then on your buyer related activities, I've got it highlighted here. But for this, I just want to kind of stick to the, you know, retail listing side, you know, regular listing side. So essentially, this is what you're going to be training. What's in blue is what you're going to train your admin to do. And so when you're running a high volume listing business, what you'll need is a steady stream of leads. And you've got to follow the 4-phase lead life cycle, which I teach in Success with Listings. In other words, you generate the lead, you capture the lead, you incubate the lead, and then you convert the lead. There's 4 steps. Now, when you generate the lead, that's just the first step, but it doesn't, you have to convert it, right?
Yeah.
And the magic really happens in the middle. So that's where the incubation is what we call follow-up, you know? So at some point you're going to probably have to hire or train your assistant to follow up for you because most agents are just not good at following up. You're working the business that you have in front of you, but this guy said he's ready to list in 4 months. That one's ready in 6. That one's a year out. So you got to have somebody that takes care of kind of rolling the log down the road. And because you're ready to work the business that's ready.
Yeah.
And so that I coached a guy, Andy Green was his name, and he's still in the business. He was doing 25 million a year, and he implemented one strategy that I taught him, and it took his business to 50 million. And that's the reason why people pay me ridiculous amounts of money, because I helped him make 25 million. And that was it was one coaching session he learned. And all he did was—
That's not a bad coaching session.
Yeah, all he did was he hired a VA. He finally realized that he's never going to do the lead follow-up because there's always so much new business coming in that you don't have time. Like the guy said he was going to list in 4 months. I mean, look, you're not ready, you're not ready. But his VA started taking all those and nurturing them. And then when they were ready, she would present them, say, hey, Andy, this guy's ready. But she's been nurturing them for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And so he doubled his business just by not letting business fall by the wayside that way. not letting it fall through the cracks. And then admin help. So it's the steady stream of leads and admin help. That's it. That's the secret. It's that simple. Now let's talk about the math real quick to get you there. And then I'm going to answer and I'm going to show you one other thing, and then I'm going to answer some questions you have. So, but before I show you this, let me show you, I think this will answer another question you might have about, let me see which tab. Okay, so what I did was I created a, what I call a licensed assistant and administrative assistant procedures and training manual. So the key to having a good admin is to train them. That's really the key. So the question is, how do I train them? So what I did, so I'm going to show you kind of an overview, and you'll be able to access all this stuff as well in versions that are editable. So let's say, for example, I want my admin to look up a property on MLS. Well, I've got a video that walks them through how to do it, and then I've got the 3 steps to, here. Let's take something more complex. Like, let's say I want them to input a property to MLS. Now, theoretically, your wife could do this or whoever, but they have to have a good admin profile, which is going to be an SC or a CS generally. It could be a DC. I had a DC that was excellent. She was a school teacher that came to work for me, and I paid to get her to get her license for her, so that she could do the task that she wasn't legally able to do. But she wasn't the type that was aggressively she's not the type, you don't want to hire somebody that'll take everything you train them and go do their own.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to find the right profile of somebody that's just a supporter, and they have no, Barbara Reardon. I hired her. I was 33 years old, just started in real estate. I hired her 8 months into the business, and she was with me my whole career, 13 years.
Nice.
So, and she retired more or less when I retired. So we kind of retired together, if you will. So let's say I want them to input the property to MLS. So that's going to be very sort of step by step. So number 1, log into MLS. Here's the link. On the landing page, do this, so on. And it goes all the way, step 8, 9, 10, 11, and so on. It keeps going. So, and then what I do is I create a video that goes along with the training. So not only am I giving them the step-by-step training, but I'm giving them a video that they can follow. And the only time they really have to, this video, and they can open the video right here within the Google Doc, or they can just open it in a separate window, and it'll walk them through. It's just a monotonous, boring video on how to input a listing.
Yeah.
But what I tell people is, if you don't take the time to train your assistant meticulously, then what you'll find is you'll say, well, man, I can just input it. By the time I do all this training, I could have just done it myself. But what you don't realize is, with high volume, you have to give them something that they can use when you're not around.
True.
So that's why you want to document. Now, if I was trying to find your disc, I couldn't find it before our call. If you're a high D, which I think you are, you may not necessarily want to do this, because high Ds are not really that adept to systems and processes like doing this kind of meticulous work.
Yeah.
So what you do is you train your assistant to do it, and then you have her or him, whoever it is, to document it just this way, and basically I can teach that person, hey, here's how you document this system for Dinko, or they can start with my system and then kind of tweak it.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to show you, and this goes into everything, like how to upload a contract in a SkySlope. I mean, I got a video for every single thing that I'm teaching them. See, so that's just, giving them excellent training, because you want them to do it exactly the same way you would do it, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So then the last thing I want to show you before we Q&A it is it this? Yeah, this one right here, Dinko. What's the name of your team, Dinko? or what will it be?
Well, that I don't know. I'll just say Dinko team.
All right, cool. That's good. Now let's look at these numbers down here first. Now you'll be moving to a new market.
Correct.
So I'm going to assume that your sphere of influence will be very small.
Yeah.
Will you have anybody in your sphere of influence?
One person, one of my friends that moved there a little while back. That's it.
So let's just not even. So
yeah,
because theoretically, for every 12 people in your database, you should be able to generate one referral. And the way you do that is you have your assistant staying in touch with them, you know, in the way that I teach. But if you don't have this, then let's just put 0. So then what you're going to have to do, what you're going to want to do is start with your farm and your niche. Okay. Now let's look at really what you're going to do is work these in reverse. So you're going to start with your niche and then you're going to go backward. Now, but let's talk about farm for real quick. So your farm is going to be a geographical area that you decide that's where you want to dominate. And I want it to have like a 7% turn, meaning if there's 1,000 homes in that farm, at least 70 are selling, you know, per year. That's easy to find out. All you have to do is look up tax record to find out how many homes are in that subdivision. And then you look on MLS to see how many homes sold in that subdivision in the previous 12 months.
Okay.
Let me tell my boy. And then you take that and you can see what the percentage of turn is.
Yeah.
And what I want is if you're following my system for farming, then you're going to have a 20% market share of that farm eventually. You know, within 12 months, you should have a 20% market share. So that means if you had 1,000 homes, you'll have 14 deals from that 1,000. Okay. But what you're going to have to rely more on is your niche. So that's where you'll just decide, okay, this is what's going to be my niche.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And then, you know, and then you kind of, you know, once you kind of have that part of it figured out, okay, this is my niche. I've got all, you know, I'm working this thing. Then you go backfill it with your farm.
Yeah.
And then the whole time you're building your sphere of influence.
True.
So because the key is you got to grow your list. You got to get out there and meet, you know, get to know people, meet people, join different groups, you know, whatever it takes. Now, theoretically, though, you could do all of your volume from one niche. You know, like with Buffini, he teaches everything through the sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I teach 3 buckets because if one bucket is dry, then you could always have the other 2 still. It's like 3 spigots, you know, constantly going. So let's look though. Your number was 40, right? That was your goal?
Correct.
Okay. So let's just say, let's say your niche, let's say you had a 500 home farm. Then that's going to give you, let's say you did 35 from your niche. So the thing is you would need, based on this, you would need to tap into a niche that would allow you to get at least 35 deals a year, at least 3 deals a month from within that niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of them that can do that. Now let's look at the numbers up here. Hold on a second. So do you know what your average sale price will be?
I mean, probably around 300.
Probably going to be higher. Let's put 350, but it's getting real hard to find anything in Austin.
Yeah.
It's getting real hard. So I would say 350, and then let's put your units. Let me see where I'm getting this number. Let me change this. Okay, so that gets you real close to what this assumes is that you have 42 units in you know, personal production, and then you have 10 team deals. Let's say you have a buyer agent on your team.
Yeah.
that just takes up the stuff that you don't want to mess with, then let's say that person does 10 deals and also helps you with your signs and lock boxes and other things.
Yeah.
So then that would give you a $500,000 business. Now, when you look at your admin person, I'm saying would be at $20 an hour, 25 hours a week. Now, this could be a VA. Okay, I have several VAs that are less than $10 an hour. But you got to really look at it and see what works best for you, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you wanted to bonus that person, if it was a local person and you felt like you had just a far out admin, I mean, like really, really good admin that you wanted to bonus because they're just that good and you didn't want to cut them in on a piece of your business.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't want to give them 10% bonus of every deal or 20% of every deal. You could do that too. But what you could do is you could take your $5.95 admin fee, which I teach how to get that on every listing. And then you could bonus them with those $5.95s. That way the listing commission is all going into your pocket and they're just getting the admin fee as a bonus. So in this case, they'd be making another 25,000, or you could cap that. You could say, hey, you can make up to an additional 15,000 a year in bonuses, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
You know, plus if that person's licensed, they could be making stock and they could be participating in revenue share at EXP. You know, but this is just kind of gives you an overview of what that would look like. And I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is what should they be doing?
Yeah.
What should you be doing versus what other people do? And that's where the team duties sheet that I showed you, is that here? No, that's not there. That's where that comes into play.
The one that kind of shows what you should do and what somebody else should do. And
right. Even attending closing, I don't have that for you because attending a closing is not dollar productive. You know,
yeah.
I stopped attending my closings in 2009. Now, there's still going to be clients that you like, man, I'm going to go to this guy's closing. I like, you just, in other words, the key is only do things that you like doing and that are dollar productive. True. So some people you might be like, man, I'm going to go, that's my boy. I'm going to go to his closing.
Yeah.
I really, I like being around him.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, when you train your clients from the beginning that, hey, so-and-so is going to be handling all the details. In fact, they'll be assisting you at the closing and this and that. They're already pre-programmed. They already know ahead of time. Then if you decide to go, then that's up to you.
Yeah, they already know that it's most likely going to be the assistant that's going to be.
Yeah, and always call them your business partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever call them your assistant. Y'all can talk that way amongst yourselves, but you just say, hey, my business partner, she does this part of the business and I do this part of the business.
Yeah, because then
have you ever had a roofer comes out, one guy does the estimating, but he ain't about to get on the roof and put the shingles up. He's like, no, my partner does that. I just do the bids and all that.
Yeah,
that's basically you. You go from job to job. You secure the business, you get it, you done. You throw it over your shoulder at that point. Make sense?
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah. What questions do you have around this?
I mean, how would you find like what niche specifically to focus on, and then also how would you tap into an SOI if you're moving into a new market?
What you'd have to do, so the niche is you want to do something you enjoy, something that gives you a challenge, and you look at your disc profile, and then you look at the niche, and see if it's a match.
Yeah.
So like lakefront properties is a good profile for a high I. They like being out, people, they go to a lot of socials and things like that. Now, if it's more administrative, like short sales or pre-foreclosures, or even something like lease purchase, things like that are a little bit more creative and more paperwork intense, that might not be as sexy or exciting for you to do.
Yeah.
So really your niche or probate, Probate is great for people that don't like to deal with people, you know,
Yeah.
because the client is, you know, is basically deceased, you know,
Yep.
you're dealing with the estate and you're dealing with lawyers. You know,
Lawyers,
so
paperwork, and things like that. And
that's all it is,
yeah.
paperwork and, you know, stuff like that. So but there's so many niches. And then the SOI, the SOI would basically be that you have to tap into other people's SOI. So everybody that you meet has hundreds of people that they know.
Yeah.
So you have to, in order to build you have to build an SOI, because your SOI is your sphere of influence. It's people that if I picked up the phone and say, hey, you know Dinko, they're like, yeah, I know Dinko. They
Yeah.
know you. So
Yeah.
there's two groups. There's Mets and have Mets and have not Mets. So your have Mets are people that I'd pick up the phone and say, yeah, I know Dinko. What, you got a question? They know you. They just,
Yep.
you know. Now the have not Mets are people that you have marketed to. They're on your list, but you haven't physically met them. They're just in your database, if you will. So you've got to grow your list. So it's called list building.
Yeah.
You know, just old fashioned list building. Now you could theoretically start with a niche and then build your list that way, and all those people become your SOI. Same thing with a farm. You know, if you do the farm correctly,
Yeah.
which is very intense to do it the right way. In other words, you're doing, instead of open houses, you're doing events.
Yeah.
And with 40 signs around town, you might have a wine tasting. You do, you've got a YouTube channel, and you have a Facebook page that's dedicated to that community. Then you're interviewing all the local businesses, and you once a week you feature a business, a local business, and then I mean it gets pretty intense if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, what I say is like if you're going to put on a raid of a country and you're hitting them by air, land, and sea,
Yeah.
you just, it's an assault on that community,
Yeah.
you know. And then you're even door knocking, circle prospecting around not just your listings, but any listings that our company has at EXP. You say, hey, we just got a new listing in the name, or we just this one just went under contract, and it had 8 offers. That means there's 7 people that are looking to move in this community, and we don't have any homes to sell them. Do you know anybody looking to sell? Have you been thinking about it? You know?
Yeah.
So you have a reason to knock on the door, you know. But by doing things like that, there's a lot of activities that you can do to build your SOI.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the beginning, I wouldn't even worry about it. I would just go after, I mean, we had a niche business years ago where we could do 80, 90 deals a year from one niche, you know?
Yeah.
So just, if you SOI is not there, work on it but you don't have to wait for that to grow in order to make a fortune.
Yeah. Because the SOI is going to kind of come on its own.
It's going to backfill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to backfill, you know, as you start getting acclimated to the community and to the area and all that, you know.
Yep. No, I agree.
The niche is going to be the biggest question for you, and the second biggest question will be who's going to be your right hand, who's going to help you do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost think it's going to be tough, but you sooner than later, once you figure out your niche and you have your systems in place.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first hired Barbara 8 months into the business, and like I said, she was with me 13 years, and there was days when I first hired her, because I was in overwhelm, but then we went through a dry spell because I was teaching her, so I wasn't out getting the business. And then she was like, well, what am I going to do today? I'm like, don't worry, the business is coming. Because I knew how to generate business, and so do you, you know.
Yeah.
When you have somebody dependent on you to work the business that you generate. Now, the other thing you could do, Dinko, is you could do just hire a contract to close people.
Yeah.
You know, you pay them $300 per transaction. Or some of them will do listing to close. Okay. And then you just tell them, these are the things that I want you to do for me. And they're highlighted.
I mean, you can always start with like a virtual, and then you can always transition. And
correct. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. But that's really how you're going to avoid overwhelm.
Yeah.
Is by having the right person. Because if you want to have like Mina, I was saying earlier, she did 8 deals and then she went nuts. She had to take 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Because you will burn out no matter what your capacity. You'll burn out and burnout doesn't mean that you can't handle the business. It just means it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
So
for
it's
me,
becoming overwhelming, and
it's overwhelming because you're outside your comfort level of capacity, and then when you clear all your plate, you're like, okay, I got through those deals, but then you look up and you don't have any deals.
Yep.
Because it takes 90 days to ramp up your business. And you take your foot off the pedal for 2 weeks, it's going to take another 2 or 3 weeks.
I've been there. I mean, even in that first year, you have like a $40,000, $50,000 closing month and all this, and you're running around everywhere and trying to save this one and doing this, and then it all closes, and then you're like, man, I didn't really do a good job of staying on top of the business.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that's all you want to do is generate the business.
Yeah.
You don't need to work the business. You just need to generate it.
Yeah.
Because working the business is low dollar productive. You can find anybody to work the business, but not everybody knows how to generate the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, 97% of agents don't know how to generate business.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, NAR did a study. They said that 97% of real estate is sold by 3% of the agents. And when I looked at it, when I was doing 150 deals a year in our market, we could have had 300 agents like me, and we would have sold every 40 some thousand deals.
Yeah.
But yet there was 14,000 agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you only needed, a small number. I think it was like 150 or no 300. I think you needed.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think most agents end up doing like 3 deals per average on year, but then you got the ones doing none and 1 or 2 every other year.
Some
or
do
something
6
like
to 8.
that.
They're happy with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
They're making a steady living, but the reality is if with just a few tweaks, which is the right hire, teach them to do the right stuff, knowing what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing. That's the biggest problem most agents have. They even think like they should be negotiating the deal. Why? Like, that's just, it becomes egotistical for me to believe that nobody else can sell real estate.
Yeah.
I can. Even if it was true, somebody else has to be able to sell real estate because other deals are happening, not just mine.
Yep.
So we have to let go of our attachment to being the only one that can make it happen. Yeah.
And I think that's where, like how you had Barbara, I think that's where having a confident assistant kind of is a game changer, because you don't have to wonder if they're going to do it the right way, because you kind of taught them, and then they know if they're going to, how they do it, and you teach them to do it your way. So you kind of know that they're taking care of it. So I think that's,
Yeah, this one secret when I found Barbara, and pretty much carried over until I started hiring VAs, is she was 62 when I hired her, so that would make her 75. She worked with me till she was 75. I was 33. She was 62, and she had just turned 62. And her question to me was, and I offered her I went to my allied resources, which is like title companies, mortgage and stuff like that, and said, hey, who do you know? Do you know anybody that's, and they said, yeah, such and such. And so actually in Barbara's case, was it Barbara? Yeah. I went to, I think my broker or somebody, and they went to church together. And so Barbara, she used to work for attorneys doing, she was basically the same thing she did for me. She was an admin for attorneys. And she dealt with only with premature infant death. That's all the cases she handled. So here's a person that could deal with high stress, high, drama, lots of emotion with the families and stuff, and deal with hard ass attorneys. You know what I'm saying? These attorneys, boy. And she dealt with all that. And so that, and she retired, but she was still not spent. Like she still could, she had a little gusto. So when I went to her, I said, I can only pay, I think it was $12 an hour, what I was paying back then. And she said, I just got Social Security, and if it would be all right with you, I can't make that much. I was like, well, it's gonna be hard for me to do this, but I'll go ahead and cut your pay. It's gonna be tough for me to do, but I'll go ahead and I'll do that just for you. but she couldn't make what I was offering her, man. But she just wanted to do something. She wanted to stay busy.
Yeah.
And so the senior market has been to me. I mean, I was 33 back then. Now I'm 50. So like, she's only 10 years older than I am now. So it's like, wait a minute, so that was always real good for me. When I hired my second person, Barbara found him.
Yeah.
And same thing. He worked for the VA for 30 years, very reliable. And he retired, and he was looking for something to do part-time. And I hired him to do signs and lock boxes and keep our inventory and just basic stuff. He kept the company van and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of an idea of, because you could go either, I mean, if you don't want to pay a lot, you either got to go with somebody very young, like a college student or intern, or someone older, and both have pros and cons.
Yeah.
Both have pros and cons. The older group, to me, I found to be very loyal. Now I've started getting with VAs, which I've been using my Outdesk. Those have been very, very good. They're just not at hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a good assistant, you could, like I had a school teacher that we got paid for her to get her license. And then she was able to go on like the listing appointments and things like that with me. And so it was less of a, like with the client, we were together at the listing appointment. So that the fact that person took over,
that they were there, it was kind of more normal to them.
It was normal. And so I would a little bit more recommend that. But you don't want to find anybody that's like an ex-agent that can get jealous. Like, man, this dude, he just made 400,000 and I only made 30. Barbara was happy to make the kind of money she made, and she had no interest whatsoever in doing what I did. Like, doing listings. So it's a delicate.
I think that's where a lot of people, one is, they're like, am I going to find the right assistant? And then two, is, are they going to take my business? So I think that's where people struggle with it. But I do agree. I think with somebody who's kind of approaching retirement or who is in retirement is just kind of looking at, I feel like that I could see how they could be the most loyal, because they're just kind of looking kind of for like a little side gig just to keep their mind and stuff like that going.
Yeah. And like Barbara was already getting Social Security. She didn't really have that many bills. Same thing with Morris. He had a pension he retired from IBM, and then he retired from the VA. So he was good, but he didn't just want to sit at home all day.
He wanted to have some responsibilities.
Yeah, he wanted to work, and all this would take is about 4 hours a day, about 20, 25 hours a week. And what I would do with my people was I would work them Monday through Thursday and give them Friday, half a day Friday, and give them, so I think Barbara, the most she ever worked was 30 hours a week.
Yeah. But
she always had nights and weekends off, and she worked half a day on Fridays. So it was kind of and she worked like 5 hours a day, Yeah. So, and they really can work from home. So that's my time. Has this been helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you for your time.
Good. Was it worth the 20,000 you paid me?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sending a check, FedEx.
FedEx my money. All right, let me stop the recording here.